Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name's Jono. Long overdue, back to a vintage camera. This is a revisit to a twin lens reflex camera, medium format, 120 film. It's been a while, but this is awesome. This is the Yashica-A. Let's take a look. So here you go, this is my Yashica-A. It's a twin lens reflex camera, more about that in a moment. It takes medium format film, 120 film to be precise, and again I'll come back to that in a moment. There's a lot of similarities between this and the Lubitel 166B, which I made a video, you may remember, here we go. What I'll do is I'll leave a link up above to that original video because there's a lot of similarities between these two cameras, and it just makes it simple if you've watched the previous one before. So I'll just get that one out of the way for the moment. So this, as I say, twin lens reflex. We've got two lenses. We've got the top lens, the viewing lens, if you like, the one that you're looking through when you look through the viewfinder, the one that you use to help you compose and focus the image. And then this one down here is the lens that actually takes the image. I'll come back to those in a moment. This camera was made from, well, there seems to be some confusion. Some of the information I have says that it was introduced in 1959. I've also got other information that says it was introduced from 1956. I think the confusion really is down to the fact that the Yashica-A may have sort of morphed from previous Yashica models into this, and then later on the designs were modified further. You'll sometimes see them in slightly different colours. Sometimes there's grey as opposed to black. Sometimes this this title across the top is different, etc, etc. But this is my one. I love it. It's not in perfect condition, but when I got it, it was in pretty poor condition, and I have managed to restore it somewhat. I have managed to certainly get it working absolutely perfectly, and I do love using it. So let's take a closer look. If we start round the back first of all, we have a little window here, which if you slide up, a little red window, pretty common on 120 film cameras to have a little window that you can obviously see which frame you're currently about to shoot. It's in the middle of the camera rather than over to the right or over to the left. I probably need to make a video on this really, but window in the middle basically means that the frame size that you're going to get is 6 by 6, 6 centimeters by 6 centimeters. That'll be the size of the frame on the negative, so quite a large image. Not uncommon 6 by 6, but you can get different sizes. I think I'll make another video on 120 film explaining that. Little shutter to close it off, just to sort of minimize the chance of unnecessary light getting in there. On the bottom of the camera we have a mount for a tripod, and this is also the way that we can open the back to load the film. So you can see I can turn towards O for open or C for close. So if I turn that, you'll see this clamp is kind of opening up, and that means I can then open the back of the camera. As you can see, no film in here at the moment. Got a take-up spool, and this is where the film goes. So 120 film, unlike 35mm, we don't wind back when we're finished shooting. It basically inserts in here, the film inserts in here, and it is wound on to this spool all the way when it's finished. And then obviously the empty spool here can then be put up here as a new take-up spool for the next film, and so on and so forth. I'll just close that down, and again turn it towards C, and you can see the little clamp closing up here to actually seal up the camera. Nice little feet so that it stands level. It'll sit on a flat surface, nice and level. On the side here then we've got our sort of main controls. The first one here is the actual winding on knob. There's no stop. So basically when you are winding on, you've got to obviously keep an eye on the window, the frame number, to make sure you don't miss it, because it will just keep winding. It also means it's not linked to the shutter, and so you can double expose. So I can take several images without winding on, they'll all be on the same frame, so you've got to be careful of that. There's a little reminder here of what film you've got inserted, so you can probably just about make out there's two little studs and a little red indicator here. So I've got it next to 400 ASA at the moment. That was the last film I used, but I can actually twist these. Oops, if I hold it steady, I can twist these and say there to now it's showing 200. It doesn't have any effect on the camera at all. It's purely a little, just a reminder of what you put in there, because apart from the frame number, there's no way of actually seeing what type of film is in the camera at any one time. Here we got our focusing knob, and if I'll just rechange my hands here a second. If I move the focusing knob, you can probably see there the whole assembly of the lenses moves forward or backwards to focus at the same time, so that the viewing lens and the taking lens are obviously in sync. You may well be able to make out on here there it's focused at infinity, right down to either 1 foot, 3.3 feet or 1 meter. Say up to infinity is the focus. We've got also a sort of indicator here for aperture sizes, different focusing at different aperture sizes, but that's actually controlled by the taking lens. So covered up with a lens cap at the moment. If I take those off, this is probably the big difference between this and the Lubitel. If I just bring that back into shot, Lubitel without the lens cap on, you can see the lenses, the taking lens and the focusing lens are different sizes, different focal lengths, etc. And I did cover that in the video that I mentioned. Whereas here on the Yashica, these are actually identical. They are both Yashica-A or whatever, 18mm lenses, f3.5. It's just, as I say, this one is used for composing the image. We have a viewfinder on top, which I'll show you in a moment. This is what we're looking through, whereas this one actually takes the shot. So if I open up the top and let's spin it round, this is the viewfinder. Now, you're not going to be able to see much on the video here, I don't think, because the light's a little bit bright, but the image from here, light is reflected on a mirror up into the viewfinder. Let me just see if I can... There we go, I've turned off my indoor light and I'm focusing out of the window. Not a great image, but you get the idea of what you can see when you're trying to compose a shot. There is an option to push out a magnifying lens here, which is quite useful. Obviously it just magnifies the image that you're looking at through the viewfinder, and that just folds that out of the way when you're not using it. Around the outside then we've got our shutter speed. So fastest this goes is 1/300th of a second, so quite a slow camera in terms of shutter speed, but it means that you can get some really nice images with it, and obviously experimenting with different speed films from 300th of a second down to 25th of a second. You can probably see that here, and then finally we've got a bulb setting here. So that's the dial around the outside. Much like the Lubitel and a few other cameras that I've got, the older ones, we do need to prime the shutter first. So we basically put that down until it clicks, and then we can take a picture with this shutter release here. Now the shutter release doesn't have the option for a remote shutter release, the cable release that I featured in a previous video, without the use of an adapter. So you can get a little adapter that actually screws on top of here, and then the cable release plugs into it, because there's no hole like you do have on some others. On this side then we've got our aperture. It's just a slider here, goes from f3.5, as I said to you, right down to f22, so quite a nice wide aperture range. We've got a little sync port for flash, so you can see it's marked X-Sync, and that actually synchronizes at all the different speeds that you've got here. So let me show you what it's like to put a film in this. So this is some footage that I took previously of me loading film into the Yashica. 120 film, similar to 35mm, but rather than being stored in a light-proof cartridge, it's simply on a roll with some backing paper. So the first thing we need to do is obviously insert the film in the one side of the camera, and then draw the paper across and feed a tab into the take-up spool. Can be a bit fiddly, especially when you're trying to film it, but take your time. It's not difficult. Once the film's in and secured and the sort of lugs are clicked into place, we can use the wind-on knob then to actually start drawing the film across. Now, eventually you'll come to some markings, and this is where different manufacturers of film have slightly different markings, but this line here with the two arrows pointing in the direction, that's as far as we go. At this point, we close the back. Unfortunately, I haven't picked it up too well on the video, but there are two marks here on the Yashica so that you know where this line should go. And at this point, as I say, we close the back. Need to start winding on then, obviously, to the first frame. And again, this is Ilford film I'm loading here. Ilford film, the sort of countdown to the first frame number are these little dotted circles that gradually get larger until eventually we see the number 1, which is our first frame. We stop winding at this point. But when we wind on to the next frame, we'll also see those circles again getting larger and larger until a number 2 appears. So pretty straightforward process. On the other side then, we've got cold shoe that can hold a flash, or it can hold other devices. 2 little release knobs. This is when we're actually loading the film in. In order to put fresh film in, we need to actually pull this to one side to actually allow a film to fit, and obviously we've got the same at this end to actually allow the spool to be inserted and removed, etc. On the whole, I love this camera. It takes some lovely pictures. I haven't got any to show you in this particular video because next video that I'm going to do is all about another home development, and I'm using some film that I shot with this, so you look out for that when it's released as soon as I possibly can. But yeah, it's a nice camera. Like I said, entry level in terms of twin lens reflex and 120 cameras, much the same as the Lubitel, very much an entry level. This one though, although my particular model isn't in great shape cosmetically, this one's much more expensive to buy. You'll get a 166B for sort of 20 or 30 pounds, whereas these in good condition 150 plus, because it's so much more robust. It's much better quality glass in it, and etc. But both really nice cameras. If you've not tried medium format before, I do recommend you give them a go. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Yashica-A, great camera if you're thinking about starting in medium format for the first time. You really can't go wrong with a beast like this. As I record this, I am this close to 700 subscribers. I am absolutely stunned by this. Thank you all. I really do appreciate. If you haven't subscribed already, please perhaps consider pressing the subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications. Who knows, this could really be something that interests you, and I'd love to have you on board. Other than that, all that remains to me to say is take care of yourselves, and I'll see you again soon.